In the last section of this session, we began to look at strategies for developing and growing a strong self-concept and positive self-esteem in children. We discussed the fact that praise by itself has very little value, but combined with other efforts, it can be worthwhile. We also learned that proper praise is a very complicated process, and we spent the remainder of Section 3 discussing that process. Now, let's look at some of the other efforts needed to help foster positive self-esteem. As we mentioned in the last section, expressing love to children comes easily to most adults. Respect is a different matter. Most children know they are loved, but it might shock most adults to learn that many children do not feel respected. Instead, they feel frustrated because they aren't being taken seriously by adults. Since respect is a crucial ingredient in building a strong self-concept, we need to make sure we are truly respecting the children in our care. How can this be accomplished? One way to show respect is to look at and really listen to children when they are talking to you. Also, be patient and don't cut them off or correct them. And finally, take what they have to say seriously. In this way, we can show that we value and respect what they have to say. In addition, always remember that children learn about the world by asking questions, and we should live by the phrase, "No question is too dumb." At times, their questions may seem silly or frivolous to us, but we are adults. We must try to remember that children use questions to learn about the world and how they fit into it. Their curiosity should be encouraged, and every question should be respected and immediately answered in some way. That way, however, may not be with a direct answer. Sometimes, the best way to answer a child's question is with a question worded in such a way that it guides the child to discover the answer for him or herself. Admittedly, this is a much more time-consuming approach than just answering the question. But remember, one of our goals as child care professionals should be to help teach children how to think, not what to think. True, this approach doesn't work with all questions, but if you feel that the child can discover his or her own answer, then it is worth the effort. You will be conveying the idea that you respect the child, and you will also be fostering his or her curiosity. Children also talk to us when they are feeling emotional and need to express it. In these cases, make sure that you accept the child's feelings and don't dismiss them. You may even need to help them put their feelings into words. After all, they are still young and may need guidance on how to express these intangibles. Talking to an adult who is really listening can be very helpful in these types of situations. First, the child feels valued and important. The child will also begin to learn how to work through emotional situations, and sometimes just talking about a problem can help a child feel better. One area important to the development of children's self-esteem is how we approach the learning process. It is important to communicate success in learning through praise, but it is just as important to embrace a child's need to struggle in the process. Struggle does not necessarily indicate something is wrong because all learning involves some level of struggle. It is imperative that we remember this. We may want to step in and do things for them in order to be helpful, but we need to learn to resist that urge. Challenge and struggle are important if they are manageable and conquerable in the end. Since wrestling with the learning process is important to feeling successful once a goal has been reached, setting appropriate learning goals is crucial. Goals that are too easily accomplished can actually lead to low self-esteem. And the same can be said about setting learning goals that are too high. Consequently, we need to make sure that all goals are individually set based on each child's past performances and developmental level, that these goals are reasonable, and that they are accomplishable in the end. Another issue related to struggle is perfection. Always try to keep in mind that strong self-concept is not about believing one is perfect or even striving to be perfect. It's about recognizing one's strengths, weaknesses, and improvements. Since learning is difficult, it is important that we acknowledge not only when children succeed, but also when they improve. After all, that is their ultimate goal, to better themselves. If a child does not learn to embrace the idea that mistakes are okay, that life's about growing rather than being perfect, then they may develop very low self-esteem. Praising children for their growth is important, but again, your praise by itself will not foster a strong self-concept. Children need to be taught how to realistically evaluate their own progress and achievements. When children have completed a task, ask them to evaluate it, to look at it realistically and compare it to their past performances. What improvements do they see? How have they grown? And it's important at this point to look at the positive changes. Identifying areas that need improvement is important, but people with strong self-esteem begin with the positive. Consequently, we need to begin there as well. Another area of concern in the development of self-concept is behavior. How do we handle preschoolers who are misbehaving without doing damage to their sense of self? This is an area that also requires delicate handling, for if discipline is either too harsh or over-permissive, it can lead to the development of low self-esteem. Notice that both extremes, harsh punishment and little or no punishment, result in the same outcome, low self-esteem. Children need to believe that we have confidence in them to succeed in all areas, including following the rules. The rules also need to be set using the same philosophy as setting learning goals. They should be challenging but still attainable. In addition, we should offer praise to children who are successfully following the rules, and ignore temper tantrums and other negative behaviors whenever possible. As mentioned earlier, most children love to hear their names associated with success, so rewarding those students who achieve that success behaviorally is very beneficial. Even if we have developmentally appropriate rules in place and reward those who follow them successfully, we all know that there will be those students who still break the rules. So, how do we handle things once a rule has been broken? To begin, the best defense is a strong offense, as they say in sports. This means that your rules, as well as their consequences, should be clearly understood from the beginning, and it means that both you and the children understand these things. If they don't know exactly what is expected of them, then it will be very difficult for them to achieve the goals you've set out. And thinking of these things as consequences rather than punishments does help, because a consequence is much more objective. You do this and this happens. You don't do this and that happens. Whenever you can, word your rules so that they are telling the children what to do rather than what not to do. Keep them positive. For instance, instead of having a rule that says, there's no talking at the beginning of circle time, try something like, we need to be quiet at the beginning of circle time, so we can find out what we're doing today. Not only does this latter choice tell the children what to do, it also tells them why. Another important element to successful rules. Finally, follow your rules consistently. This can sometimes be difficult, but all of the children are watching. Once you let a rule slide or don't enforce a consequence, the other children will see it and expect the same actions in the future. We all have experienced moments of great frustration when a child just won't listen or behave. When you have rules and consequences in place, but they just aren't working. In these situations, you must avoid yelling at the child at all costs, especially in front of others. This action may not only lead to the development of low self-esteem, but it will also probably escalate the unwanted behavior over time. Children of all ages test their boundaries. As mentioned earlier, ignore temper tantrums and other negative behavior whenever possible, and stick to your rules and consequences. It may take a lot of time, patience, and perseverance on your part to get a stubborn child to comply, but it is the better option. Additionally, it is crucial to separate the behavior from the child. The child isn't bad or wrong, it's the behavior that needs to be changed. We still love and respect the child, and we still believe that they will conquer that rule in the end. They need to believe that we feel that way. It's also important to emphasize the fact that mistakes happen, that no one is perfect, just as we did with learning goals. The child may not have succeeded this time, but after the consequence is completed, the situation is over. We need to be careful not to project that we expect that child to make the same mistake again. They need to feel that we believe they will succeed the next time. The final thing to remember when working on building children's self-concept is that children are watching us and learning from us all the time, even when we don't intend to show them anything. Everything we do and say makes a difference, so we need to choose all of our actions and words very carefully. Adults who have low self-esteem, in other words, those who do and say negative things about themselves and their accomplishments, are modeling these behaviors for the children. If we follow all the guidelines for creating a strong, nurturing environment, if we lay the groundwork to foster a strong self-image, and then we show them something different, something negative, they may adopt our actions rather than learn what we are teaching. Therefore, it is crucial that we not only say what they should do, but also show them the way.